So Jibril Sulaiman is an entrepreneur of 18 years. And he is one of Pensacola's own. He's owned several small businesses and grew previous tech companies to number 484 on that 2016 Inc. 5000 list, right? So he's legit, he's done his thing. In early 2016, he launched Workbase, one of the first co-working spaces in Pensacola, and actually the first one online actually operated. And at the end of 2016, Jibril and his family moved to Atlanta, where he launched a cultural shopping platform called Spend With. He raised just under $50,000 using equity crowdfunding to launch Spend With that. Ultimately, he pivoted from cultural shopping to cultural freelancing in 2018 with the launch of Inclusion, a marketplace for hiring freelance professionals of color and women freelance professionals located in the United States. And Jibril has participated in Gulf Coast Center for Innovation of Entrepreneurship Incubator, now called CoLab, in Pensacola, in the New Me Accelerator, and the Ascend 2020 ATL Pre-Accelerator, the Founders Gym Startup Bootcamp, the ATDC Accelerator Program, and while in Pensacola, Jibril served as a board member for the Gulf Coast African American Chamber for 2 years and was the catalyst behind the People's Perspective and several other activist pages that highlighted social justice issues in Escambia County. Please welcome Jibril Sulaiman to the stage. So we're going to have a little fireside chat here, a little deviation from originally what we had laid out, but we're going to get into connecting IT technologies. And I'm going to take some questions from the audience as well, so make sure you get those questions in your head, get them ramped up. I know we got a lot of students in the house tonight, so we want you guys to make sure you get your questions answered, learning how to do and leverage a library of resources that are on the web, SaaS technologies, whether you're programming or whether you're in building out a Cisco WAN network. So Jibril, how's life?
Life is great. Life continues to be a journey, an adventure, a challenge. That's for all of us. And we're working on some big things and making things grow in the ATL.
Nice. So you moved to ATL to have a different type of platform available to you of tech startups. But in that, before you got there, you built an Inc. 5000 company here in Pensacola, Florida, which isn't necessarily unheard of, right? There's a few other ones here that have landed here. But I want to get into the details of how you built this company behind the scenes, because you're almost like a one-man show from what I understand from a more detailed version of your bio and kind of being behind the scenes and kind of knowing you personally.
Well, it wasn't easy. I think that, there was a great support network here in building out a company. The GCEIECC, I can't remember the acronym, but Gulf Coast Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, whatever that spells out to be, right? That was a great resource that really allowed me to grow and learn a lot of the startup mentality that I needed to learn in growing the business. Being able to, at that point in 2011, I had 600,000 in sales to the platform, and then I pitched to join the Gulf Coast Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the time in 2012. And so, we had revenues, we had sales at that point, but, I needed more than that. I needed mentorship, a network and all of that. And I was able to tap into that with that program.
Gotcha. You did all that here, right? That wasn't based on Atlanta. That was doing all that here. That network was here, and all that stuff was here.
That network was here, growing the business. All of that happened here. I graduated out of the program after 4 years. At that point, that was 2016. That year before, that's when we did 9.8 million in sales. Made the Inc. 5000 list for 2016.
Nice. So let's talk about some of those technologies. So I know there was some homegrown stuff, and there was some stuff that you kind of leveraged as far as a library of things that were out there. And so you mind running down kind of a list of things that you kind of was able to leverage on the web that help you build your business and grow it and scale it, that was kind of out there for you to use and subscribe to, per se.
So, ultimately the pain point that we were solving was building out a platform, a B2B platform for accepting prepaid wireless payments. I had previously grown out of as a wireless dealer of 10 years, owning a few wireless stores, and getting inundated with calls from customers that were calling us to make a payment. And we wanted to accept those payments because we earned a margin from those payments. So, and so that's what I wanted to do. At that time, I didn't know the difference between Java and JavaScript in 2011. I thought they were the same language or cousins or something like that, right? So, at the time, I was a guy that was a small business owner entering into tech, trying to hack together basically a system that replicated what a T-Mobile or Sprint would do as far as automatically accepting a payment, running a credit card, doing a capture and authorization and kicking back a decline or reinitiating the process, and then merging that also with a web platform that allowed any independent wireless store in the country to basically have that platform and use it, right? There was a lot of bits and pieces there putting together beyond the core application, different APIs that we had to connect into, processing platforms for payment processing, Twilio for the SMS and voice side of things, Dwala for sending out the payments to the customers in a seamless way through ACH clearinghouses, and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of bits and pieces that you have to pull from. There's a lot of APIs that you have to pull from when you're building out a complex application. Right?
Gotcha. And I'm glad you actually started with the problem, because I just assumed everybody knew because I knew. So to backtrack a little bit, the platform that we're talking about that Jibril has or had at the time was a platform called Paysell. And let's talk a little bit about that problem solution back in 2009, 2008. So you're in the prepaid wireless game. You're in the wireless game in general, right? So prepaid, postpaid, you were selling phones and all of that type of stuff. So let's dig into that problem just a little bit more to make sure everybody has a mindset of what's happening. We're talking 2008, 2009.
Yeah, 2008, 2009. There was, of course, that was in the middle of the recession, right? The recession had just started around that time, and people were looking for alternative ways to save money, right? They're looking for different ways, and one of those ways was changing their phone service, utilizing a lower price phone service. At that time, Boost Mobile and several tier 2 carriers actually came out with unlimited plans, right? Nationwide unlimited plans. Initially, they were regional. Your Cricket was a regional company offering unlimited service at that point until 2008, 2009. And then they came out with those plans, and that just boosted the visibility of these prepaid wireless companies. More and more people were ditching their original plans, their Sprint plans, and getting their phones reprogrammed for another carrier.
Oh wow! So there's a reprogramming of a phone aspect. So we're talking, this is pre-iPhone, right? 2008.
iPhone came out in 2007, but yeah, there was still, there were iPhones getting reprogrammed. We were switching and utilizing different softwares that allowed us to unlock or jailbreak or flash phones, even in the wireless business, being able to integrate different technologies into our business practices. And we were using those platforms, those software tools to unlock and jailbreak and root phones and all in order for them to be used for other carriers at the time.
Gotcha. So I won't ask you to incriminate yourself, but are there any of these softwares we can talk about out loud that were kind of the cutting edge pieces of software? Were these freeware? Did you actually have to buy and subscribe to a platform that gave you access?
Yeah, these were subscription-based programs.
We're talking about hacking, right? We're talking about hacking in my situation, so
I just can't remember the name of the programs at this point right now. CDMA-wares and stuff like that. These different programs that, yes, we paid a subscription to, a monthly subscription. They came out with, new releases of the program that allowed us to hack into the phone, basically, right?
Gotcha.
And change different settings that allow us to use it on different carriers.
Gotcha. Okay. So the problem you're solving is people are looking for cheaper service, and you're finding ways of taking the phone that they have and then actually moving it to a different platform by reprogramming, hacking that phone so it'll support on a different platform. and then go from there. So that's one way you would scale your business. And so using some cloud technologies or some, and were these cloud technologies at the time, or were these offline? These are local?
Local, they did have to auth with the server for the license to make sure that I could open it, and that was it. So other than that, it was just a standalone desktop program on the computer.
Gotcha. All right, so fast forwarding a couple years now, cloud tech is coming out, things are moving to the cloud, and now you're wanting to scale, so you're trying to get into the automation of bill payment, right? Was that kind of the next phase of
that being able to innovate in the wireless business created a problem for us then in accepting their payments. We had so many customers, like I said, calling our stores, clogging up our phone lines, that I needed a streamlined way to be able to implement accepting those payments, because we wanted to accept that payment from that customer. And being able to do that, that's what led to building our PaySale. And I named the company PaySale, but everybody kept calling it Sell Pay. So the platform actually was called Sell Pay.
Yeah, that's what it was, right?
Yeah. So, and that led into that problem, led into that solution, building out that solution, and integrating multiple technologies together. It was a lot of what we built was, duct tape and bubble gum on the back end, because we were building out APIs for carriers who many of those carriers didn't even, because they were tier 2 carriers under the top 4, they didn't even have customer service, people that answer the phone. A lot of them. Or if they did, it cut off at 9 o'clock. But if you had a prepaid phone, if anyone's had a prepaid phone, your bill cuts off at 12 o'clock. And if your phone is off, you need to pay it. And that was we recognized that problem. And so being able to build out a way to, of course, at that time, generate a PIN number, associate that PIN number through a site that didn't have an API for sending a PIN number, that was a task. So that took some automation using tools like Selenium and things like that to automate websites and input the PIN number into the platform or into that dealer version of that website in order to complete that payment process. We had to build out those different processes for 10 different carriers at some point.
So I'm glad you mentioned Selenium. So Selenium, so you're dealing with tier 2 carriers. So explain the difference between a tier 2 carrier and you said the top 4. So what's the difference there?
If you equate it to the telephone systems, you had your Bell South, and then you had those other carriers that were reseller carriers under that. It's the same thing where now you have a T-Mobile and Metro, and Metro is just using, now they're actually together now, but before they were using the just the Spectrum, buying Spectrum from them and rebranding that airtime as their brand, right? And so they were using the backbone system of the top carrier, those 4 different carriers, but they had their own billing systems and everything as well. And a lot of times those billing systems were flawed, and we were able to capitalize off of it at the time by building in our own platforms that augmented or supplemented the billing systems that they had. So.
Gotcha. All right, so you mentioned Selenium. So Selenium isn't an API tool, is it?
No, you can use it. You can run it through a command line as well. Right?
All right. But what is Selenium?
Selenium is it's an automation tool. It's for automating websites.
It's a testing tool.
Yeah, it's a testing tool.
It's actually a testing tool. So here we have a professional out in the space identifying tool sets and like, well, shoot, they use this for testing. Why can't I use this to actually now automate a process that I use to actually build a business on top of? So this tool was originally designed for people to test websites, for testers, and to build programmatic interfaces to make sure that that website is good to go. The buttons that get pushed work well. And now he's taking this tool and using it for
push buttons
to push buttons and automate buying airtime.
Yeah. We had to do that. We did have an airtime provider that allowed us to generate a PIN number that was associated. This is old school now, associated with the phone, and you had to associate that PIN number to that account. And we had to do that through this front-end website to do that. And so we had to use tools like a Selenium to automate that process because they didn't have an API that allowed sending that PIN number to that carrier to complete that association process of the airtime.
Gotcha. So now, who's doing this for you?
Outsource developer.
Outsource available, huh?
Developer, yeah.
Developer. Find a developer and put it together, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I had some smart guys on my team working with me, and yeah.
All right. Find people like that in a co-working space now, huh?
Yeah, you definitely can. Like seriously.
All right, cool. All right, so now we're getting to the point of where automating airtime. What's some other tools that took you to the next phase after that? So you started automating airtime, and I'm assuming you're building out a software platform to use this tool that exists. So what does that look like?
That was a PHP platform that we were building out that kind of housed everything, right? We had to also integrate into our processors, the gateways that connected to the processing companies and so forth, right? We have to connect into the verified by Visa, Cardinal Commerce for the different payment authentication layers and so forth, so that we can prevent fraudulent transactions. We had to integrate with Count, which is another authentication, MaxMind, these different companies that check the transaction and make sure that it's not fraudulent, right? And so those are different on the payment side, accepting that payment and being able to process it and make sure to accept it and not catch a charge back for that payment. We had to build in those tools and those APIs as well.
So you had to collect payment from the customer, verify that the transaction went through, and then once that went through, you then use Selenium to go purchase the airtime in your name.
Well, we already purchased the airtime because we did have an airtime provider that provided that airtime through an API. But once we had that sitting in our server, then we had to push that PIN number out and use Selenium then to enter that PIN number and the customer's phone number into that dealer platform that we would normally manually click on and enter that information into using that in an automated way using Selenium and stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So credit card processing now. So you're doing secure transactions. What's happening on the back end side there? So you're connecting all these things. So all of this is being developed from scratch, I'm assuming, because there's no WordPress plugins for this.
No WordPress plugins. It was building it out from scratch. Getting the response back from the PIN number was loaded, scraping that response because, again, there was no API on the dealer website side, so we had to scrape that message that says, your PIN has been loaded successfully, scraping that message, and then, getting that back from that site and storing that and saying, okay, now server, connect to back to Twilio and send a success text message to the user, or reply with an audible response saying that the payment was loaded successfully, and from there, and that was usually the life cycle of a transaction. But then building in from there, different cron jobs or whatever that allowed for reminding the customer of their next payment that was due, things like that.
Okay, cool. So you dropped a couple of names. So let's talk about what is Twilio.
Twilio is a telephone platform that allows anyone to send a text message or receive or initiate a voice call through an API.
Okay, all right. And then you mentioned cron job. And actually what I want to do is I want to say, I'll give away a free massage to someone who can tell me what a cron job is. First person, raise your hand. Who knows what a cron job is? You don't count. All right, what's a cron job?
Regularly.
Come say it on the mic.
Okay.
Let's see if he knows what he's talking about.
It's a regularly scheduled process or task that you can set on any sort of schedule you want. So every Tuesday, run this program, or every minute, do this thing to sync some things, talk to an API, process some transactions. Do you want some more? Or?
Ding, 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 ding.
I was gonna let you talk. All right, so the reason why I'm doing these definitions is a free massage from Laura Massage, and she will actually come to you. So this is a $60 gift certificate for a massage. And she couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted me to make sure I big her up. And so Laura Massage, she is a traveling masseuse. She does massages all over the place. I have one more to give away for all of you who are here. So make sure you're ready for it. All right, so cron jobs. So let's talk about these cron jobs for a minute. So you had cron jobs running in the background to do what?
Thousands of them.
Thousands,
you know, well, it's not thousands individually, but that process going through phone numbers and looking at the date saved in the database and that SQL database and saying, okay, they paid on this date and it's this carrier, and so we're going to push out a text message reminding them 5 days before that date is due that, hey, you need to pay, using payment tokens. So allowing a transaction to go through a lot easier without saving that credit card information in a, of course, secure space using, not through Stripe, but through our payment gateway at the time. Authorize.net is one, we were using another one though. And pushing that and allowing them to, or combining that with that cron job and pushing out that text message and allowing them to reply with a pay if there was a token available, right?
Okay.
Where that payment could be processed a lot easier than re-entering all of that information.
Okay, so we've been talking about a lot about development tools, but so now, what is the infrastructure behind all of this stuff you got going? You got thousands of cron jobs processing, you got API calls flying this way, and then you talking to the customer over here on this side. Like, what's the technology, what's the IT infrastructure looking like that's holding all of that or allowing you to do that? Because I know we got a lot of IT students here who in various fields, we got some professionals working out. What's the infrastructure looking like that's holding that together?
We're running on just a dedicated server that was hosted in a what do you call it? I can't think of the name right now, but just in a server farm.
Okay.
It's in a server farm that was in Orlando. I think we were using some German server at the time. Some server company with latency there was a latency issue there at that point. So we moved to the server farm that was in Orlando and went from there. So at that point in time, I didn't have an exposure to the cloud. And so that's how we're operating. That was the infrastructure.
So we're talking what time period right now? 2011, 12?
Well, yeah. Well, this is throughout. I didn't migrate to the cloud with PaySale at all. So
Okay, you stayed on a private dedicated platform the whole time. Okay, cool.
Sure,
All right, so you've got servers now doing all of this work, not just one box in the back room somewhere, right?
It was 1 or 2 boxes because we actually had the back end of the platform. We had the front end. A lot of the front end was built out in PHP. The back end was built out in Java, and so we had it hosted on 2 different servers. I can't say if that's right. I didn't have to do it like that, but it was.
It worked. All right. So we're digging into tech. We're digging into tech now. We're digging through, IT infrastructure. So what's next? What are some other pieces in that IT infrastructure? So you were dropping a couple names earlier. So what's another piece?
I mean, we can go into as far as the IT infrastructure side of things. That would have really been it. It's just at that point, some of the tools we were using for project management, using a Jira, for our ticketing and Bitbucket to host our source code. We had different processes in place for that as well. Agile process in place for that. So, but as far as the IT infrastructure side, I would say that would be the end of that scope.
Gotcha. So Jira, what is Jira? So tell me what Jira is and what Jira does.
It's a project management platform basically for issuing tickets, stories, Kanban boards, whatever in regards to the life cycle of the developmental lifestyle, whether you're running in sprints or waterfalls. Does anybody do waterfalls?
Does anybody do that anymore? Don't do that
XP, so running it.
Yeah. Okay. So you got an agile process, project management platform in place. You said you're using Bitbucket to store your code in.
Right.
For repositories. So all of your I'm assuming all of your code was being checked in there, and then that would then get pushed out to the server in some form or fashion.
Right.
All right. How far can we dig into that? Then your developers took care of all of that?
The developers took care of a lot of that. I was still learning at that point, so I kind of taught myself PHP, checking behind them and being curious and things like that. My skill in development didn't really progress until like 2016 as far as that goes. I knew what I needed to know, and I knew how to translate my ideas into what they needed to do, and I learned more of the project management side of things more so than actually getting into the nuts and bolts of
Gotcha. So you're out of the back end side for the most part, running the company for the most part, just checking on them. Okay, cool. Well, with that being said, I do want to open up the floor to some questions. I said I was going to take some questions, or he's going to take some questions. And we got one question already, so let's dig in. I want this to be an open conversation because the more you guys know, the more you ladies know, the faster you can start your own companies, you can get into your own IT infrastructure and hire the professionals that are here, right? And get them utilized and build great things. So
once you servicing your own stores, I presume first, right? And how'd you market it? How'd you get it out?
The platform itself, so that's a whole other long story there, but it started with a Facebook group. It started by creating Facebook groups that allowed wireless dealers to talk to each other and fuss and complain and everything else that happens in Facebook groups. And so because of that, I was able to use those groups as deal flow to sign up on the platform. You know, we're able to approach those people. I was the moderator of the group. I started the first wireless dealer-centered Facebook group on Facebook, right, at that time, and we were able to grow and just use it as deal flow from there. Beyond that, you know, there was a few other marketing techniques that involved scraping the Facebook, sending out text messages, breaking a few text messaging laws, stuff like that. So, you know, guerrilla marketing and things like that we implemented, guerrilla growth hacking strategies that allowed us to build a base of users and then after a while it was word of mouth as well. And then we built out an affiliate network as well that allowed people to come in and earn a commission override for additional stores that brought in volume as well.
awesome. Questions? Yes,
So
sir.
how did you go about seeking and recruiting talent for the initial project? Would it have to be people that you knew, or was it like a networking event? Or
I didn't know shit at the time, so I was just, you know, because at that time, like I said, I actually hired a guy. I Googled and I found this telephoning company that there was some Java developers and they built out something, but they wanted to charge me a surcharge for every transaction and all of this crap, and it was hard dealing with them. There was no accountability. So I went to a conference and I was listening to this conference on building out applications, and the speaker said, hey, if you need to hire someone, go to this site called Elance. And at that time, this is 2010, and I got a few $1,000s together, and I ended up hiring a guy that was in San Francisco that freelanced on the side. And he built out the initial early part of the back end of our application.
Nice. So, of all you students, how many of you guys are on freelance sites right now? None? All right. How many of you all are seniors? We got a couple of seniors. What about juniors? Got a few juniors somewhere right in the mix. Okay, so y'all are in deep in some classes then, right? So probably leaving here, you probably want to go find a way of doing some freelance projects. So piggybacking off of that question then.
Great segue.
So that was then, right? You were at a conference that you happened to be at, and it provided a great segue for you. How would you go about looking for talent right now? If you needed to go hire some tech stars right now, what would you do right now for your company?
You know, a large portion of it is leveraging social media like LinkedIn, but also I'm still a proponent of freelancing, right? Of tapping freelance work. And that's what has led me. I've spent a lot of money hiring freelancers over the years, right? But you know, having those platforms that provides a level of accountability where I can rate those freelancers and so forth, and allows me to, in a lean way, implement and then de-implement, if that's a word, talent in a very lean way, skill sets, right? Because ultimately, I never really hired. There was a few actual title positions that I hired for my company, but generally it was grown in a way that it piggybacked off of freelance skill-based talent. And that's what I'm a proponent of today, because the workforce, the model and the trends of corporate America, organizations hiring employees, is changing rapidly, right? And so we're one of the proponents of that now in the new venture that I'm working on. 69% of organizations, according to a Randstad study, says that by 2025, they will only be C-suite, and that's it. They won't have titled employees other than the C-suite employees that are there, right? And so that's important. By 2027, 51% of the workforce is going to be what we call agile, meaning freelance, independent, consultant-based, contractor-based, gig worker-based, right? And so utilizing those platforms is going to be more and more important as time goes on.
Gotcha. So it's important to have a profile out there on social media. It's important to show that you can work remotely or work independent, and then be able to showcase some sort of portfolio in a freelance way that you can be given a project and then just go work on it and then come back and then bring results.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to have that portfolio and to be able to know, execute on, and show have a history of providing something, whether it's a hobby project or a project where you're actually paid by someone else in a freelance capacity. It's important to have that. Right? It is.
All right. So if you're getting, because I know we have a lot of students here, I want to make sure that they're able to benefit from that a lot. So if you say you go sign up for a freelance site and you have nothing to showcase, what should they be doing to showcase things or to put in their portfolio, or to at least say, hey, I've done these things? What should they be looking to showcase there if they're trying to get their first gig?
The same thing that they would be doing for any employer. I mean, you have to build just a personal portfolio of hobby-based projects that illustrate your skill level, the learning process. This is crappy little test site A, version B, version C is nice now, nice CSS or whatever, and it looks good and it functions now, right? So those similar projects can be leveraged on a freelancing site in order for you to earn side money for it.
Yeah. All right, so if you don't have any work on a freelancing site, so it's good that you should be able to have a place where you showcase that online also then.
Yeah, whether it's even GitHub code or your own personal website that shows the demos of the projects and all that. So.
Okay. So with that being said, so with your new project then, Inclusion, I assume you learned a lot of lessons from the past, and as you continue to use freelancers, how did that change? How did you leverage building your new technology that you have out now? What does that platform look like, and how are you continuing to build that out?
That platform, it looks like a platform that manages the project management side of being able to search for freelance talent, bid on that freelance talent, or freelancers being able to bid on a project, communication, payment, disputes, and all of that's managed through the platform that we built out. Just went blank on the second part of your question.
I don't remember it either, but we'll just keep going. So the goal is to try and figure out what was that technology behind that.
Right.
So did you build all that from scratch, or were you able to now grab tools that might have been developed out and just use those and plug those in?
Yeah, so at that point, I had to learn definitely learn development. I was stuck on freelancing now. Learn development. I went through a development boot camp myself, started implementing and practicing skills that I had already learned through osmosis, I would say, from running a tech company in the past, and I was able to create a platform that that actually has a vision of what I want to be able to do in tackling the future of work, right? So I built that out, got it up and going, entered into with the previous cultural shopping platform we're working on. We were accepted into the ATDC Accelerate program, and they gave us $100,000 worth of AWS credits. So I had $100,000. I didn't blow that yet, but to play around with Amazon's, create an instance, create EC2 instances to mess with their emailing platform, and just to play around, right, and just learning from that and being able to launch an application and host it there now. So now I will never host again on a dedicated server that's outside of the cloud at this point right now, anyways. And so being able to do that now, those are the different things that definitely I've been able to learn and implement. Right?
Gotcha. So you're doing some scaling on one of the cloud providers, Amazon or Azure now, using some of their tools that they have. Let's see. So everything is built from scratch in this platform as well. So actually, let's backtrack. So you talked about the shopping app for a minute. So there was a mobile app, I think, right? On the original build out that you started to do with crowdsourcing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Originally, when I moved to Atlanta, we were working on a platform called Spend which was a cultural shopping platform. And we did an equity crowdfunding round raise through Start Engine. Kind of like a Kickstarter, but you have to give out some type of equity. Securities involved with that. So we utilized Start Engine, raised another $50,000, launched the platform. And sometimes visions don't work. You envision one thing, you build it out, and you expect for it to work a certain way, and it doesn't. And you pivot from there, right? And you live, you learn, and I don't take anything away from that. I don't look at it as a loss. I look at it as a learning process. It's part of the learning process.
Right. So what was the tech behind that then? So what does the mobile tech look like? Was everything built from scratch? Did you use plugins?
Actually there we launched from a clone script. So we used a pre-built version of a code that was already out there that was readily available for purchase that allowed us to implement an MVP, a minimum viable product, faster.
Okay.
Was it the wisest choice for MVP? Yeah, to build visibility. Was it the most practical choice in the long run? No, because I bought an app that wasn't built. It wasn't even built in Swift at the time, right?
Oh wow.
And so having to convert it over to Swift and things like that, it was a headache.
So this was so you mentioned a clone script. So what is a clone script, just to make sure kind of everybody knows?
A clone script is just a pre-built version of code that's out there that usually some person overseas has built a clone version of a popular site already, and that code provides all of the minimum basic functionality of whatever you're trying to implement, the functionality, right? So in this case, we bought a clone script of LitGo, which is a popular online classifieds app, and we retrofitted and added additional at that time, just different functionalities to it to build it out into something a little bit different, but still had that same essence of what we were working on.
Gotcha. Okay, so you bought a clone script and it only worked, so you mentioned it didn't work in Swift, which is the iPhone development platform, so it only worked on Android, I'm assuming, at the time?
It worked on Android, yeah.
Okay, so and then you had to actually retrofit it so you can service both major platforms, right? Right, didn't want to be locked into one. All right, so what was the back end side of the app looking like, right? So you had the app on the phone, but what was it connecting to? What did that look like, and how did that work?
That was APIs also, right? There was a server running in the back end that really controlled everything that the app did.
This is basic cloud somewhere?
Yeah.
This is in Azure, AWS?
It was on AWS.
Okay.
No, I think we were on DigitalOcean at that time.
DigitalOcean? Okay.
Yeah, DigitalOcean. And so just an application running in the background, so it queried any of the listings that showed up, and everything was querying a server, and there was a response, and the app was just rendering those results. Right?
Were you doing SQL or a document database?
SQL.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't done anything in documents.
In the document shit? Okay. Let's see here. What about, was it all SSL on the back end? What did that look like?
Yeah, we use a cloud, we use Cloudflare, so a lot of times, and that provides certain levels of encryption and making sure that all the sites are encrypted, right? Then on top of that, there's we're running certificates on the back end and on the server side as well. Right?
Okay. So Cloudflare, was that like so that they do encryption? I know Cloudflare does a CDN network also.
Yeah, about a CDN network also, but then the most important thing is that they will meter traffic to your backend server or to your actual hosted, to your IP, in case of a DDoS attack, right?
Okay. And what is that?
That's when a lot of web traffic from bots is sent to a website in order to overload it and crash it, right?
Denial of service hours. So the other word I mentioned was a CDN. Who knows what a CDN? Anybody know what a CDN is? Nope.
Well, yeah, that's it. He knows. Now you know.
Content delivery network?
Hey.
Yeah,
But it's all right, we're good.
I gotta share with love. All right. So CDN, Content Delivery Network, is designed to actually. I'll let you tell you the CDO. You make.
No, you tell it because I'm gonna mess it up. That I would admit to say that I can't give you the exact definition.
So CDN is basically a content delivery network that basically provides a POP or a point of presence in various areas across the U.S. and other country points. So if I'm in Florida and the server happens to be in Germany, I know you were saying you're having some problems earlier with slow connection speeds. What they do is they provide a direct route from, say, a major POP in the U.S. in Atlanta and bring that traffic cache locally right there in Atlanta. So I'm not having to go all the way to Germany to get that network. I can go right there and grab it from Atlanta in my web browser or my app. So that traffic isn't having to go all the way back to Germany every time for every little small request that's been cached locally and forward present to push that content to me, whether it's images or streaming services, etc. And it provides a forward point of presence to have direct access, so I'm not bouncing all the way around the internet just to get to Germany and then long haul all that traffic back. So it's just an optimization thing, which is why you can go to some websites and they pop fast, right? And it's been cached on your browser, but some websites are fairly fast, they pop fast, and then some websites are slow because depending on where that traffic is, it might be on a server underneath someone's desk, right? Sitting in the back room somewhere. We've done those things in the past, but we won't talk about them now. All right. So now we're talking the app. You pivoted away from the app. Now you're on your present platform, Inclusion, which is that tied to the app or completely separate, or did you leverage that same tech, or what did you do there?
No, we built it out from scratch. I mean, because the functionality is completely different. Currently, right now, we're not leveraging an app at all. We're just leveraging a mobile responsive website, right? Mobile first, right? Making sure that it works on the phone first, more so than anything else, right? Because that's what most people access. That's how most people access the internet now.
Okay. Is what, through the phone or through the web?
Through the phone.
Through the phone. It was for
Still
like.
through the web, but through the phone.
Yeah.
Web on the phone, right?
Okay. So the freelance platform is that's when you do the mobile first design. So freelancers are people posting jobs. They may use the website, but a lot of freelancers may be doing things from their phone to try and bid and do things like that. Okay. All right. Well, I think let's stop and ask a few more questions. Anybody got any questions here? I see you in the back.
Going back to your ACell talk, how long would you say it took your customers to transition to the automated payments instead of calling you every time you need to pay a bill?
How long would that have? A lot of the times it was instant, right? That was the default option. And it's hard to give a percentage now, 5 years later, right? But at that point in time, there were many customers that were fine with doing that. It really came down to the personal comfort of the customer, whether they wanted their credit card information stored on some type of third-party server, right? We weren't storing it. There's a certain level of merchant processing clearance, tier level that we have to operate at in order for us to actually be able to be approved by our payment processor, right, at the time. And so that information was stored with the gateway provider, whether it was an authorized.net and so forth. But that came down to the comfort of that user, whether they wanted their credit card information stored for ease of use. I'll store my information. My dad would never store his information. He would never type in his information over the phone. He's going to give it to you, right? So it really depended on that person themselves, right? But we had it readily available for everyone, right? Generally, the recurring users were about 10 to 15% of our payments, if I remember correctly. So it wasn't a large amount, but definitely there was definitely activity there. So.
You have a question?
So when working with freelancers, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced and how did you address them?
Well, especially if it was offshore freelancers, it was the culture, just understanding the construction of saying a sentence and not having that sentence mean something else because they're translating it or they're reading it natively, but it's because of a cultural issue or whatever, it's translating in something else. So that was one of the frustrating points. But my guys, like I had one guy that worked on the Java end of our platform, and he operated as a freelancer, and we were Skyping and IMing each other. I had never talked to him on the phone until maybe a year and a half into the project, right? But we actually called. But he was great, he actually, because when I sold the IP of the company, the other guy that bought the IP of PaySale, he's still working with them now. He's their main developer, right? And he was the rock star. So I would say that would be the thing. And of course, the time issue. So one of the things that we focus on with the inclusion is focusing on freelancers here located in the United States, because that is a big issue. I freelanced for a short time, and the competitive nature of overseas freelancers, there's a process and a system. You could tweet that you need a developer or designer, and now you're getting emailed with people looking to secure your business, right? And so when you're dealing with that aggressiveness, that level of of procuring projects, right, the U.S. freelancers need a platform that highlights them as well. And so that's what we're building with inclusion.
So when you're utilizing freelancers to create the project, how would you implement like security features? Would you instruct them from the ground up while they're doing the program to begin with to implement these features, or would it be after the application's already been built?
So building out security, and that comes down to your trust of that freelancer, right? A lot of times, if you're getting somebody brand new, because I've been, I've had, I don't know if the guy sold my root keys to my server, or if he lost them. I don't know what happened, but I've been through that process, right? And so yeah, you do need protocols in place, right? And to have access, first of all, right? And first of all, you're not giving root keys out to developers, right? You need that other person that's going to set up those different authentication, those layers of security while the application is being built out. And then also getting a second set of eyeballs into the application to review that code after it's built, right? Make sure they're not building in anything that has holes in it or backdoors, right? So just implementing those type of processes, and that's what I've learned to be able to do, especially dealing with freelancing. So you're not really just hiring one freelancer. At some point you're hiring 3 in the process. Dealing with that, if you're dealing with just one application that you may think is meant for one, there's really 3 or 4 that's involved in that process. Hey, more hands. I'm probably not. Go ahead.
It's kind of background. So, say, for example, I have a portfolio, just a portfolio, not really any freelancing work yet. So, what would you look forward to in their portfolio, like their code, their abilities? So what will make them a candidate for being hired?
For being hired or just for the project?
And being fired. Hired, sorry. Hired.
So what do I personally look for? So first of all, I look for someone that can plainly explain what I need done back to me, right?
Right.
And so if you can't do that, that's a big issue, right? That's a communication issue. But beyond that, of course, it is looking at previous projects. It is sometimes looking at code. Now, if the code is above my level, I'm looking at gibberish, right? Just depending on my expertise and looking or reviewing someone else's code, right? And those GitHub projects and things like that, right? But just looking to see that they built something that was tangible and that could be worked, that was done. So a lot of times I'm hiring full stack. That means they're building out a complete front end, a project with the front end, back end that I can play with, right? And just making sure that that's in place. Now, you know, as you freelance and you go out in the freelance world, if you're building out something that may not have a front end or it's just part of a one piece of a larger project, then it's just going to be based on the same way getting hired for a regular job. There's going to be those people there that are going to be in place that, you know, they can review what you've done and make sure that it works in order to bring them to the project.
And you're more so, you're not a developer, or you're more in IT, right? You're on the IT side of the house?
Developer, actually.
You are a developer, okay.
That's what I was asking.
Gotcha. Aaron, I saw your hand, and then I'll catch you in the back.
Can I get three? Can I get three?
Ooh,
Let me sort. So I'll tackle the biggest one first. It's kind of the same topic we're on. So is there a way within these applications like your own to develop that level of trust, right? So if other people say, I trust this coder and they read it, but there's no peer reviews. So why isn't there a service out there when I request a code to be written for me, that when it gets submitted across the community for a peer review as part of the service that I'm paying for, right? So if I use inclusion.
There is
that's
code
within that.
review. There are code review sites out there that will review code, right? But then it just depends on, you know, you don't want a community to do it because you don't want a community to replicate whatever your functionality is in the code, right? Or reverse engineering and building backdoors. There's certain things there, of reasons why you don't want the whole community to, or some type of crowdsourced peer review. But there are services out there that will review, you know, code as it's built out and make sure that there's no big bugs or issues in it.
All right. Second question, the fun question. You know why it's called Jira?
No, actually I don't.
Go Jira. Godzilla.
See, that's above my level of nerdiness. I'm sorry.
It is. So we use Jira as well. So
Right.
it's a good application. And I forgot my third question. So it's
All right, so I'll go to the back, and then I'll catch you.
So I'm thinking about, as you're breaking this job up and you have a variety of people doing coding, obviously, I hope, no one knows the whole story, right? You have 2 or 3 people working on different parts, otherwise, somebody with an non-disclosure agreement offshore doesn't care about an NDA. They're gonna steal your idea, and now they're off running with it themselves. How did you protect your idea as you had freelancers doing the coding so that no one really knew the end story? Maybe you didn't.
No, I
was trying to steal the idea.
So with PaySale, there was a front end system and a back end system. Front end was, you know, front facing and all the UI and things like that. And I actually had a guy that was working on the front end, and he didn't take the code, he took the concept of what I was doing and built his own platform. Right? Now, I could have gone after him. I could have tried to sue him, tried to waste my time. And I looked at it as wasting my time at that point, right? There's always going to be a level of exposure. The code may not be the exact same, but someone could have an overall vision and duplicate what you're building out. Functionality different. Functionality may be the same. The code on the back end may be different, but there's always a level of exposure there. There's a certain trust level that you're going to have to build with that development team, of course. And that's part of it, man. It is. Unfortunately.
Instead of build on your new venture with inclusion, how is that?
That's why I built it myself.
We're setting up an arena
of freelancers, though.
Right. So how are you protecting the people that are hiring?
But now these are U.S. freelancers, and now there's the opportunity to lock them into an NDA, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Right.
There's a company called The Facebook. Remember that?
Yeah, and there are always going to be those stories that in any industry, right? And unfortunately, but that's what we're doing. Though I have one of the things of being a client and being a freelancer through platforms myself is understanding those both sides and being able to implement my own processes and fail safes and backups in order to protect the people that we're interested in, which are the freelancers and the clients that are hiring them in our own platform.
All right.
Yeah, same subject. So software projects can often be very complex and involve a lot of different components, a lot of different pieces. Is your model more having well-formed, discrete person with a skill set with a set of requirements and how it should be coded and what the deliverable is, and then they work in a vacuum and then they turn in, or do they come together and form temporary scrum teams and work together online? What's your model?
So our model for our platform is not that technical. To that extent, it's not that detailed. It can be. We have milestones that can be implemented within a particular project that's awarded to a freelancer. But however, what we've seen personally right now, and even on the larger freelancing platforms, a lot of times it's that it's one person that has an idea and they want to implement it, and they don't know how, so they need to hire someone, right? That person was me in 2011. They, like I said, they know the difference between the Java and JavaScript. Thought they were cousins or something, right? And so, that was But so that's the activity that we actually show on our platform right now. Now there are some platforms that have been built. We love to be able to get to that level of complexity that are internal platforms that are wrapped around freelancing. Catalent is one, right? Catalent, they've built out an AI-driven platform that can be used internally within a business, particularly for identifying cross skill sets. So it could be an accountant who knows how to do logo design also, right? And they can use that internally. We love to be able to get to that point also. But some of that, you get to a point where a lot of that then has to be, as we talk about those tools, right? Now if you're getting to that level of detail, is that our main goal? Our main goal is to facilitate the payment between, connect these two, the client and the freelancer, and facilitate the payment, right? That's our main goal. Getting to those nuts and bolts. Now those are those add-ons that can be implemented from a Jira or from some other type of just project management platform, right?
So the client would be directly driving the developer in the collaboration with the delivery, the milestones, the project requirements.
Yeah, in the market
sets are code reviews, all that.
Yeah, in the marketplace version of our platform, we do have an MSP version of our revenue model as well that allows us to become that project manager, that liaison between the client and the freelancer in that case. We're still new that we've done that once so far, right? So that's not something that we've had to kind of really flex just yet.
Cool. I'm gonna switch it up. Switch it up. I promise. I'm switching the subject.
Okay.
It's not gonna go on the same talk. So, as an entrepreneur, how do you sell yourself and your family and everybody else on this is the idea I'm going to chase, this is why it's going to be successful, and then also at that point where I know it's a pivot point to go on to something else?
Right. And that's a good question because I've actually had to deal with it. So first of all, being able to do an equity crowdfunding raise, you're raising money from people, your friends and family, social media network, and so forth. And a lot of that is leveraging the idea with the past successes, right, and failures, right, and being able to do that. And I had people that invested in that equity crowdfunding round and said, "Well, Jibril, I really don't know what you're doing, but I know you've done great things in the past, so I believe in you." And so, the minimum was like $100 to buy shares, right? So here's $100, right? So then they did that. And pivoting, one thing is protecting those people that already made that investment, right? And saying that, okay, we're pivoting the idea, but you're still locked in, right? And so it's providing those reassurances as we go. So when we pivoted from Spend With to Inclusion, we didn't just leave those guys out hanging and saying, okay, your investment is lost, right? So that rolled over. The corporation is still around. We're changing the name to Inclusion officially here shortly, and we're keeping it going, right? And I'm out here having these conversations and explaining the vision, breaking down the vision of why, pointing to the data points of why these are the trends that are happening, right? And this is how the workplace is evolving. This is how hiring is evolving, and selling it with that enthusiasm. And it's real, just making it real to the person that didn't know it was real.
Nice. One final question. Any questions?
Do you assist people learning how to be telecommute or remote employees, teaching the soft skills of working on their own, or do you have programs to?
We don't have that in place, and that's one of our goals. We want to be in the freelancing world, kind of like a Credit Karma. Credit Karma, what's their basic functionality is running your credit score. But then they say, okay, this is how you can manage your credit, or this is how you can find the best rate on a credit card, find the best rate. Here's these educational pieces that will help you in whatever, right? So we do want to be able to provide that as we mature as a freelancing platform, is to provide those soft skills for instance, one of the things, if you look at our white paper, we focus on professionals of color and women that are in the freelancing industry. Particularly women earn 30% less, so there's a pay equity issue in the freelancing space as well. So being able to build out educational pieces or even simple functionality that shows what the average fee should be for a particular task, so that they aren't, for whatever reason, bidding lower than what they should be. A lot of those things that we build into the platform, right? And so those are those educational pieces that you talk about that build soft skills and teaches people how to freelance. That's what we want to be able to enable, is teaching people how to freelance. Yep.
Awesome. Can we all give Mr. Jibril Sulaiman